Say Metro by T-Mobile got the best deal in wireless, and it's all for you, all for me. Just switch quickly, cause Metro has 2 lines for $80 and 2 Samsung Galaxy J7 Star phones for free. Plus Amazon Prime included. That's the way wireless should be. Only at Metro.
Plus sales tax and activation fee. $50 plus rate plan required. Not valid for numbers currently on T-Mobile network or on Metro in past 90 days. Offer subject to change. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Amazon Prime has a $12.99 per month value. Restrictions apply. See store for details and terms and conditions.
I'll say this for him. He's consistent.
Well, he's been so consistent all year.
Not the taste, consistency.
Consistently, yes.
Consistency! Thanks, losers.
Here we are. Welcome back. It's I can't even tell you how excited I am. It is football day, NFL time 2019. In about 10-15 minutes, the Packers and the Bears will be kicking off. I'm so excited to be back here. Fantasy Football Consistency Show, part of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. And Colby, it's good to have Colby. Jeez, see, I told you I'm so confused. I thought Colby's on the line. Ron, it's good to be back here. Thanks again. I'm glad the hurricane went north for you guys and didn't come to your side. Everybody's safe down there. I assume that the coasts are all in pretty good shape. So how you doing?
Doing good, man. It feels like it's been a long time since we've been here. A lot of stuff has gone down. I appreciate the Colby compliment. I wish I was half as handsome as Mr. Colby.
I know. Well, we all do.
I'll take that as a compliment. No, we had. I think I had a hurricane day, which sounds weird. You know, you live up north and you think of snow days.
Right.
We actually had a hurricane day Monday just as a precaution, and I think it got pretty hairy there for a while because we dealt, I think, with some 15-mile-an-hour gusts at some point.
Ooh.
So it got a little crazy, but
toppled over a couple of lawn chairs.
Yeah. It blew had some flags flapping in the wind, No, thankfully we were good. But speaking of Colby, hope where his area where he's at, I know some people in the Carolinas there. Hopefully they're doing well, and hopefully it doesn't do too much damage for them and for our listeners as well.
Right, that's for sure. And if you're in that area, we're praying for you, keeping you in our thoughts. And we know Colby got out of town. He didn't risk it. He went back to Pennsylvania, spend some time with at his parents' house, so he's safe and sound. I assume the missus is with him, or at least if she's not, she's somewhere she's safe. So I'm glad they're doing well, and again, hopefully everything stays good. Hopefully it doesn't affect any of the football games. There are 2 games on the East Coast there, the Redskins, Eagles, and the Jets and Buffalo are at the Jets. So I don't know how much rain's going to hit that or when that's going to hit, but could mess it up a little bit. We'll see. But like I said, we're excited. The game's about ready to start. They got all kinds of weird old school outfits that they're wearing. I just looked over and saw who's our guy there? Not Costas.
Well, you got
Michaels
Collinsworth,
Collinsworth and Michaels and their press hats like from the 1920s. So very cool. Kicking it off the 100th anniversary of the creation of pro football, which happened right in Canton, Ohio. So that's we're definitely just as excited for this year in Canton as we are across the country for the NFL, and a lot of big stuff happening. So as we get back here, most everybody's done with their drafts. We're kicking off the season. So tonight we're going to spend some time talking about an old friend and a new friend. And by friend, we mean some new consistency and old consistency tools that we'll be breaking out here for the start of the season. Last year, our kind of creation was called Consistently Cashin, where you, Ron, and Colby utilize the consistency information from the Clutch Report tool and the historical consistency tool that is available to you at Big Eye Fantasy Sports. And you use that information and that consistency information to pick some high floor players and to win some money at some cash games. So why don't you kind of walk people through how you guys came up with this idea, how to use this, and what you're looking at on a weekly basis. What are the the scenarios? What are the consistency numbers you're looking for to pick a good cash game based on that consistency information?
Well, and you said it right there. It's for cash games. Colby and I are not claiming we're going to go out and win you the Sunday Million or the Gravy Bomb on Thanksgiving or whatever it may be. But we were kind of throwing this concept around a couple of years ago, and you and I and Colby were talking about it, and just the whole consistency model itself, just what it speaks to is kind of having that high floor all the time. And so we've kind of thought, that's kind of what you want in those cash games, what you want in those 50-50s, what you want in those double ups. You're not shooting for the moon because you win the same money in a 50-50, whether you finish first or you finish around 40th. So what we were thinking was if we can apply this somehow to get that type of floor, that high floor player, and maybe sprinkle in, because what happens some weeks, and it's kind of a crapshoot because some weeks the ultra consistent guys, your DeAndre Hopkins of the world, your Devontae Adams of the world, Patrick Mahomes of the world. As we know, if you play DFS, those guys tend to get a little bit expensive. So we have to do a little bit of digging. So we do as much consistency as we can, but also we look for some guys that could be some sneaky high floor plays. They may be not on our consistency model, our consistency list, our clutch rating. They may not be the highest ranked guys, but they're still going to get you some points. So, Colby and I kind of come together and we both compile a couple of lists of guys that we like. And the scary thing about it is we have a lot of this. We're on the same wavelength as far as using the consistency. We look at the consistency. We look at obviously the matchup they're playing for that week. We might look at, the game script. Colby had a good point this week about a guy that you'll see in our lineup with the game script in his favor at running back, potentially the team getting up and just kind of feeding him the ball to wear the clock out. One thing I look at a lot is as the season goes along, it's kind of hard to do this in the beginning. I'll take a look at fantasy points allowed to the position. That's one of my go-tos every week, and I kind of go there after I look at my consistency stuff. So we use a little bit of everything, but it's obviously the foundation of it is going to be the consistency model. What I like to do is I like to get some of those ultra consistent guys, like I said, like the DeAndre Hopkins of the world, the Patrick Mahomes, and kind of have a few of those guys kind of be the anchor of my lineups, and then go a couple different ways with it as far as matchups I like, as far as money I have to spend, because you can't forget on FanDuel and DraftKings, you have a certain amount of cash you can spend on certain positions and certain players. So you have to watch that as well. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, but at the end of the day, we want to help you win those cash games. Like I said, we're not shooting for the moon here, but we want, when you get in that 50-50, we want you to come out with something and build that bankroll up, because maybe in a couple weeks after you get that bankroll built up, you might take a couple of our plays, throw them into some of your GPP plays that you like, and you might win that big money, or you might win a little bit more money. So we put that out there once a week. We're going to have the podcast coming out, but Colby and I put our heads together, and we can usually we're going to track it a little bit better this year. We want to have some data at the end of the year to just kind of see exactly how well we did. But I would say we cashed over half the time last year.
Yeah, and and again, that's what you're trying to get is, have a little bit of a profit at the end of the year. I know another thing you guys looked at that I don't think you mentioned is, using that historical information, especially in the game scenarios. I remember we've talked about this before of guys like Ben Roethlisberger, who is like 85% consistent at home.
Yes.
Regardless of who he plays, and 40% on the road. So you might a week where you might be starting a Hopkins or, a high dollar guy, but that is going to get you the numbers. You might look at somebody like Big Ben, who might be maybe a few $1,000s cheaper than a Mahomes, but may put up the same numbers because of his consistency in those game scenarios. Talk a little bit about that and how you guys use that.
Well, and that was something, too, that I was going to bring up here in a little bit, because that falls into, what you see in the guide this year with our con streaming model as well.
Right.
That definitely factors in, because obviously if you have a guy, you mentioned Big Ben, Drew Brees is another one that comes to mind. You favor him a little bit more at home than you do on the road. So that's something as well. If you bought the guide and if you've been on the site and you've kind of made yourself familiar with the con streaming at the quarterback and the tight end position, that's a couple places where you can really save some cash and get those stud running backs, excuse me, and those stud receivers. I know a couple times last year looking at tight ends, kind of using that same concept, helped us save a little bit of cash here and there, go with some cheap tight ends that might have a little bit of touchdown upside. Right. You think about those mid-level quarterbacks, a guy that you're going to see on our list this week is, at least on one of our lineups, is Lamar Jackson. Right. Not a hugely consistent guy, but at the same time, he's one of those mid-level guys that's kind of cheap. Now, does he fall in with that con streaming model? Don't really have an update on him just yet, but the guys like, and that's usually those quarterbacks in that 75 to 100 to 7,000 range, you can usually find one place or another that they're really consistent with. So that way you save a little bit of cash there, and you can go with those ultra consistent guys at running back.
Yeah, definitely. And as you said, the great thing is for those of you who, if you have the 2019 Fantasy Football Consistency Guide and you bought it off Amazon, so you're keeping it, don't forget that book shouldn't get put away once you draft your teams. So the perfect example is, as we talked about these game scenarios and the consistency within those game scenarios, every one of those are in the player profile. So if you go to Ben Roethlisberger or Drew Brees and you're trying to decide on some guys to start, you can look at the different game scenarios. So if you see like Brees is playing, at home and against a bad defense, you see, wow, he's 100% consistent in those games. That might be a good time to go, wow, this is a good week to put him in there. Or Big Ben playing at home, or Matt Ryan playing on the road where he's 75% consistent. That's where this book can be used all season long, and that's a perfect time to bust that out, is in these DFS, especially in the early part of the season when, it's kind of hard to kind of decide which defenses are good, bad. I mean, we know that the Bears should be good and the Jacksonville Jaguars should be good, and and the Buccaneers and the 49ers and the Cardinals will be bad. Those are obvious, but it's in between that it's kind of hard to judge at this point. So you can kind of look and see, those game scenarios and utilize that information in that in your making these decisions, as I know Colby and Ron are doing as well. So talk about the article that you guys will write, kind of tell everybody what they're going to get, and you get this. So if you're a VIP member already, you're going to have full access to both the articles every week that these guys, and they put out a lineup for FanDuel and a lineup for DraftKings each week. So regardless of which one you play, they're going to give you a lineup to play that they're going to play as well. So, they've got some skin in the game as well. They also do a podcast on Saturday that'll get put on the network as well. So, Ron, why don't you tell people a little bit about, what's going to be coming this weekend and what should be coming about every weekend for everybody when it comes to the articles. There's a guy that literally has been asking me and sending me emails probably for at least the last couple of weeks of when you guys' first article come out and when your podcast is going to come out. I know at least one, or maybe even the second guy that, so you got two fans that are very adamant about this. I know there's more, but there's two that are so adamant, they're actually emailing me and asking me when it's going to happen.
Very cool. So those of you that have not seen it before, what you're going to get is Colby and I come together and we've already kind of started putting lineups together. We go position by position. And so when you read through the article, you'll see we'll have kind of our maybe 2 to 3 favorite plays at quarterback. It all kind of depends upon, when we get into bye weeks, it might be a little bit of slim pickings, so we might have a few less picks. But we'll kind of write about our 2 or 3 main favorite guys for each position at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And then we'll kind of tell you a little piece as to why we think they're the best play for the week. Are they going against a bad defense? Are they historically great against this team at home or on the road? Have they been, if it's week 9, maybe they've been consistent every week all the way up to that, and they have all the above going for them where they play a terrible defense. And so we'll give you an explanation of a few guys, and then we'll kind of have our honorable mentions at the end, because depending upon what lineup you go with, we want to give you a few options as far as if you want to go with a different running back or a different receiver. We give you a couple different price points as well. So we'll have our 3 kind of blurbs there telling about what we like the most. We'll have 2 or 3 guys at the bottom that are our honorable mentions, or guys that we like, maybe just not as much as the guys that we wrote about, and you see that for every spot. Colby and I both do a FanDuel lineup and a DraftKings lineup, like you said, so you get 4 total lineups. You see a little bit of overlap from some of them because there's going to be guys that him and I both are just 100% on. Like, to give you a little bit of preview of this week, you're going to see a whole hell of a lot of Chris Carson. You're going to see a hell of a lot of Kerryon Johnson in the lineups that we do, because we're both kind of on them. Right. And then we have a few variations between there. Saturday morning we come together, we do the podcast, and we just kind of walk you through the week. We walk you through what the article is going to tell you. It gives us a chance to kind of speak to you a little bit. We also do our bold predictions of the week, where we just pull something just straight out of our butt and see if it sticks. And every once in a while we'll pull something out kind of crazy and we get kind of close, but it's just more of a fun thing than anything else. Right. But yeah, we try try to jam pack as much information in that article as we can, and as much. And we only do about a 20-minute podcast, and it's fast, it's furious, it's a lot of stuff in there for you.
Great. So definitely, as Ron said, this Saturday you'll see both the article and the podcast will be posted. You can find it on Big Guy Fantasy Sports there. Also part of the Full-Time Fantasy Football Network. So we're excited about that, getting started again with you guys on Saturday morning. And so while we're kind of in between, so as we wrap this part up, so we're watching, we're already seeing that the Bears defense shut down 3 and out on the Packers. And then so we're already seeing this could be quite a messy game already. But, you kind of expect that first game out, good defense on for the Bears, and it's going to be fun. So they're already calling a lot of flags, too. One thing I heard today that I didn't think about when you're looking at, like, whether it's prop bets or you're looking at over-unders and that kind of stuff, is they actually gave the stat for the over-under percentage of games that, I think it was whatever it was, but based on the head referee. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I never thought about that. And they said something about whoever this guy is had, the 53% of the games went under. So I'm like, okay, I guess that, but I mean, it's still pretty close to 50%. But anyway.
Well, something I saw here on the first play of scrimmage for the Bears I thought was a little interesting is they had both Tariq Cohen and David Montgomery on the field for that play, even though it was blown dead. So I thought that was a little,
and then Mike Davis just ran the ball. So, So the running back by committee may be exactly what we're expecting here, which is pretty much why I stayed away everybody on this team. I know that a lot of people, have quite the chub for Mr. Montgomery. So Brad Evans is probably the number one guy. Did you see the video of him like holding up David Montgomery's head? Somebody like actually edited it. He's kissing him, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?" So anyway,
I have not seen the video, but the image you put in my brain is disturbing enough.
Yeah, if you think it's disturbing, it's even worse when you see him do it. So it's been an exciting week as we coming up to this first week. We've had some interesting off season between the Zeke holdout and the Gordon holdout. Zeke got signed, of course, yesterday, so all of us people who did take a chance on Zeke were definitely rewarded, so that was a good thing. However, the Gordon thing still looks kind of iffy. I still think he either gets traded or does sign here by the end of September, but we'll definitely have to see on that. So I know Colby took the over on prop bets of 22.5 yards rushing for Trubisky, and Trubisky just ran for about 10 of it.
I'll say there's about 10 or 11 right there, so he's well on his way.
He's well on his way.
Big money, no whammies.
That's right. So anyway, what are your thoughts on Gordon? Do you see any, what do you think is going to happen with that scenario? I think he changes teams. I don't think I think there's enough, there's already started enough bad blood with the Chargers that they feel like they've got two guys that they can move forward with. And they're not going to pay him at this point, based on what he's looking for. And I'm not saying he's not worth at least $10 million. I think he should have taken that, and that's what they offered him. I don't think he's Zeke level. I don't think he's, Gurley level of 2 years ago. But what are your thoughts on Gordon? What do you think? What do you see happening?
Well, when you compare it to Zeke Elliott, I think the biggest takeaway that I have is I look at who's backing him up. And I know there was a lot of hype in the preseason about Tony Pollard, and he looks explosive and he looks like he's the guy, but he's also a rookie, and there's not really much behind him. I feel like Jerry Jones kind of being Jerry Jones, blowing smoke, saying Zeke who, all that. Zeke is that offense. Now, not to say that they aren't able to win a few games here and there without him, but it's going to be very difficult. I feel like when you look at San Diego, the other hand, they can get away with having a running back by committee. They can get away with Austin Eckler or Justin Jackson in the backfield because they have Phillip Rivers back there. They have awesome receivers. They've got Hunter Henry back at tight end. They've got a solid defense. I feel like there's a little bit more of a team concept there as opposed to him being kind of your bell cow, your one guy. Now, as far as rushing, he is their bell cow. But they can plug those guys in, I think, and compensate for that. And I'm kind of with you on this. I'd be very, very shocked if he suits up as a Charger again. I read a thing where, and of course it doesn't tell you what team it is, but there's one team that's pretty interested in him. But it wouldn't shock me if this just kind of sits on the back burner until the offseason, and then it gets decided. But if he does get traded at some point, I'm definitely not going to be shocked by it. But no, I don't think he's going to be in San Diego getting paid again.
No, or Los Angeles.
Or L.A., I should say, the L.A. Chargers.
It's somewhere in California.
Yeah.
I did find interesting the quote trade offer that Philadelphia supposedly threw at him about trading Jordan Howard for him, and then giving them like a 5th round pick and making the Chargers cough up most of the money. I'm like, that sounds like one of those like terrible trades that your friends give you in your fantasy league. You know, I mean, like if they would have taken the money, Philadelphia would have taken the money. They might have done it, but there's no way they're going to make, the Chargers are going to not get at least a 1st round out of it, even if they're getting a solid player. And let's be honest, Jordan Howard is good, but he's not that much better than probably Eckler and Justin Jackson. So I just thought that was quite entertaining. Like they were appalled that they turned that down. I'm like, that was a terrible trade.
Well, and most likely too, you're not going to get a position player back for him at this point. You're going to get draft picks, and I think that's that makes sense.
And that's what they're looking for, right?
Yeah, you don't want another guy that you're not going to pay him either. You want to add some picks and some youth to this team. So that's a little bit interesting. That makes me wonder if they took that class that I guess is being offered, that is being taught on behalf of the Texans to teach you how to run a football team.
Like the trade with Clowney and all those.
Yeah,
and for a Tunstall. Give away the farm because you need an offensive lineman. But I mean, I still think the best case scenario right now would be them trading Gordon to Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. Tampa Bay is going to be bad enough that they'll probably have a pretty low draft pick, get a 1st rounder, and maybe something else, but get a 1st round pick, for him. And I think that would help that team out a lot. Obviously, the Buccaneers need somebody a little bit better than Peyton Barber or Ronald Jones. And that could put that team in a pretty good spot. Now, granted, they still have no defense, but at least offensively, they could easily keep up with most teams from that standpoint, too. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. Obviously, the last one, which seems to be almost like Hard Knocks just will not stop even though the show is off. And by that, we, of course, talk about the Oakland Raiders. And with the Oakland Raiders, we have to talk about Mr. Crazy himself, Antonio Brown, who allegedly almost threw a punch at Mike Mayock and was told that he was going to get suspended. Then we find out maybe he's not. We don't know what the team's going to do. So that's just a daily drama that we all look forward to every day of what is Antonio Brown going to do today. And so should be interesting. I took Antonio Brown in 0 leagues out of the 40 or so that I'm in. And I'm very happy that I did. And, I heard a lot of people. I know Bob Harris was talking about it at the Kings Classic about how, he had no problem taking him, but, because of the crazy discount. And I think the crazy discount has just gone off the charts. I mean, it's just beyond stupid now. So I think the Raiders, if they cut him or release him before the first game, that then they can get waived of all the $30 million that they were going to guarantee him, outside of the $1,000 or $1 million or something, or $30 million out of the $1 million that they gave him for the signing bonus or something like that. So, like I said, I'm so glad I have nothing to do. I have nothing to do with any of the Raiders players. I don't have anybody on the teams other than maybe I think I picked Terrell Williams in a couple leagues, like late round, just kind of like, oh well, if Antonio Brown doesn't play, somebody's got to catch the football there. So, what about you? And what are your thoughts on IB Crazy?
Well, first of all, it's Raiders doing Raiders things first and foremost, and I don't know what they thought this was going to be. I mean, he definitely didn't reach this level of crazy in Pittsburgh, but it's yet again, it's going to be shocking for me if he suits up as a Raider, especially if they can get out of this contract and just cut their losses and move on. I think that's the play at this point. I don't have him in one spot either, and it's not because I was just staying away from his craziness. It's just the draft and where I was picking in a lot of these places didn't really come to me, and I was okay with the discount. And if it would have been enough of a discount, I might have pulled the trigger on a couple. But it gets hard when you know this guy is up to all these antics, and already before he's even played a game, he's like freezing his feet, and he's complaining about his helmet.
Right.
And then this stuff today, I mean, it's beyond bad. It's embarrassing. And, as far as the Raiders, I think the only Raider I have is Josh Jacobs in a few dynasties that I was able to get him in. But overall, I don't have a lot of the Raiders, and I think that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we mentioned earlier in the show here about the fact that we were going to talk about, some of the new things that we had and some of the old things. We talked about the old things, which is obviously the Consistently Cashin, which is old because it's only in its second year. And now we're going to talk about the new silver shiny toy that we have here on Big Guy Fantasy Sports. And I call it the prop bet consistency tool. And we haven't came up with a better name for it, but I think it fits, and PBC seems to be a cool, easy thing to say. So the concept came from this. Last year when I noticed that prop bets were becoming more and more popular in the fantasy world, mostly due to the fact that, more and more states were legalizing sports books and such, that, I wanted to try to utilize the information that we have for consistency purposes and utilize that in helping us pick, make good picks for the prop bets. And a couple times I remember hearing on the radio when some of the serious fantasy sports radio guys were talking about, hey, this week Jared Goff's prop bet is 275 and he's playing at home against this defense and blah, blah, blah. And, oh, by the way, he's averaged, 310 yards in those games, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, well, there's the first problem, because obviously the reason I've created this consistency model was to not look at average, but look at a game-by-game basis and are they, hitting over the factor. And so, when I got home, I remember looking at the scenario for Jared Goff, and I saw, of course, in the 4 or 5 games they were talking about that he had averaged, 300 yards, and he should take the over on the 270. I also noticed that, of those 4 or 5 games, he only went over really once or twice out of the 5. And the other 3 games, he was way under because he was way over in 1 or 2 of the others. So I said, well, consistency-wise, 3/5 or, 60% of the time, he was under. So why would you take the over? And so that's when I kind of came up with this idea and utilized this. And then I found this young man named Matt Spencer, who to me is a freaking genius. Ron, I remember, if you remember, I kind of talked about how I thought this thing was going to look when it was all said and done. It was just going to be a simple, pick the prop bet and, put in the player's name, and it would just kind of show you the games that they were over or under. And I had it more, non-cool looking, more text kind of thing. And Matt, being this little brilliant genius that he is, when I told him the idea, he says, I got this, watch this. And he came up, and I think we all agreed that he came up with a really slick tool. Again, you can find this on BigGuyFantasySports.com. Go to the prop bet consistency under tools. You can read about how it works, how you can use it. There's a video there you can watch and explains how it all works. But basically, it's simple as picking the stat, picking the player, picking the stat you want to use. So let's say you want to look at, so tonight, like it was Aaron Rodgers, passing yards. So on Bovada, which site I use, showed 270.5 passing yards, and that was the prop bet for the night. And you basically choose the stat, you say passing yards, you slide it over to the 270.5, and then it gives you down below a color code of all the game situations. Now, it automatically has the schedule in there, so it has Chicago away. It shows how many plays they allowed over the last 6 games, the rushing yards allowed, the passing yards allowed over the last 6 games. Then it says whether they're, of course, a good pass defense, a good rushing defense. And then down below, there's what's called a success matrix, which shows how often Aaron Rodgers in those scenarios, whether it's home, away, last 6 games, all games, has exceeded 270 yards. So when you look at it, he's playing Chicago away, so he's only over 270.5, 50% of the time, over the past, 2 to 3 years, depending on how much stats they have in there. Against a good pass defense, he actually is 67% consistent in those 2 games that he played. But, again, playing against the Bears, I would have taken the under. It says to take the over, and so it's, again, it gives you a recommendation. It says in 2 games away that he played against a good pass defense, he actually was over 270.5, but it's only 2 games. Being it was the first game, I probably would have either not bet this or took the under, but it gives you a recommendation. Again, it's not the end all. It's not, you're not going to win every one of these because of our recommendation. So that's just kind of the upfront scenario it shows. Now, if you want more detail, you can go down to the player logs below and start entering information, and it shows all of the past games for the last 2 years for Rodgers or whoever's there, and you can put in whether they're home, home and away, put a greater than sign 270, and it'll show you all the games that he's been over 270. And if you want to just do 2018 or 2017 or whatever the case may be, all of that information is there for you as well. So that's what it's out there to do. We're going to be testing it, obviously, here at the beginning of the season. I didn't make any bets, but obviously I'm going to get all of the information lines off of Bovada, and then from that I'm going to kind of run this things and see how many that I hit and didn't hit. But I really expect, that it'll be a really slick tool to use. And so, Ron, why don't you kind of give your thoughts of, what you've seen? I know you're kind of new to this, and so am I. So Colby's going to be our leader in this, and Colby and I are going to do an article and a podcast on Saturday as well. Right now, the tentative name of the show is going to be, ready? Go ahead. Hit him with it.
We're gonna call it right now, and I think this is the leader in the clubhouse. We're gonna call it "Profit Like It's Hot."
Profit like it's hot. Profit like it's hot.
Yeah.
And so
real quick, when I picture Colby describing this concept, and when I picture him, being on the podcast, I picture him as having a big cigar and some sunglasses and one of those clear green visors that you associate with people in Vegas. That's how I picture Colby.
Yeah,
as,
or an old accountant,
shark.
Right? Like an old accountant with the green eye shade and the little things, and he'll be fine tuning every one of them. Yeah, it'll be great. Profit Like It's Hot could be the tentative. So we're hoping for that. And do you know who FF Man Bun is?
Do not.
Do not. So in the chat room for the FF Podnet, which I don't know if you're a member of, but you should be. It's basically the full-time fantasy Podnet. We basically, Jim Day will throw out information, and we retweet stuff out of that. So somebody told me about this guy who literally writes and records his own rap songs for fun he does his own rap stuff on the side. I don't know what his real job is, but he also has been doing rap intros for podcasts. And I listened to one of them on one of the guys' podcasts, and dude, it was fantastic.
Awesome.
And I went, and the first thing I thought of was when we started talking about the Drop It Like It's Hot, I reached out to him and I said, Bud, I need your help. I need you to write me, do a intro for us for Profit Like It's Hot. And so he said he's going to do it, but it may not be for a few weeks because he's got some other ones he's doing, and he's got a real job. He's a teacher like you.
Okay.
But I told him, I said, no time frame. If it's week 3 or 4, I don't care. Just, I feel like if he does anything even remotely close to what he did on the one I listened to, it's going to be gold. So beautiful. I can't wait for that. So hopefully that'll be coming up. So, but again, kind of once you kind of give your thoughts, what you saw from a person who's new to it, how easy it was for you to use, but how excited it is to kind of see, what it shows you information wise, and you can use this for season-long leagues as well.
It's it's something that like you said, I'm just kind of starting to dip my toes in the water here with the whole prop bet thing, and I'm really excited to get into it. So I know probably of the three of us, probably by far the least amount about it. But just looking at the way it exceeded my expectations, because I really didn't know what exactly it was going to look like. It looks amazing, and I mean it's functionality. It's easy to use. It's easy to see all the different lines and the recommendations on all the bets. I mean it's a sharp looking tool, and it came out amazing. And it's just cool to kind of see too, all the different things we can apply this consistency model to. We talked about the Consistently Cashin, and now we're using it for the prop bet stuff because that's widespread. It's legal now, and you're going to see a ton of people. It's going to be kind of like the DFS thing. I think you're going to see a lot of people just kind of starting to find their way around in that, and hopefully they'll come to us and kind of see what we have to offer as far as you guys doing the pod and as far as the tool that we have. But I'm definitely looking forward to using it and seeing pairing that with the Consistently Cashin. Man, you pay for that subscription, you're gonna win your money back pretty quick, I think, this year. I got a good feeling about this.
Yeah, definitely. And so here's again, if you're already a Big Guy Fantasy Sports member, VIP member, this is all free to you. This is just an add-on. I mean, so if you've already bought it, even if you only pay the $10 because you bought the guide and then upgraded with the that code in the book. But if you're a new person, you're just listening to this for the first time, you don't have a consistency guide. Here's what I want you to do. You're going to go to the website. You're going to buy the VIP access. You're going to use the word prop, and that will save you $5. So you're going to get it for $14.99 instead of $19.99. So right there, you're going to save $5 just using the word prop. It might be prop bet. I totally forgot. That's why I kind of paused. It could be prop bet, all caps, or prop. Either one will work. Try it. It'll save you $5 just because we want you guys to try this out. And you're going to get the consistency guide. You can have that if you want to use it for your DFS stuff, for the, like I said, the game scenarios. So there's a lot of cool things you can use this for. And again, this prop bet tool has a lot of cool information. So that's just the page called Player. If you go to the page called a Team and Opponent, now you can go in and look at Green Bay, and you can do, again, same kind of scenario on their passing yards, and you can see how many games, they were over, under, the market share of the players. So here's another thing that, again, Matt Spencer came up with that I didn't, that I thought was amazing, is that you can go in and under market share tab, under the team like the Packers, you can go down and see what the touch share, attempt share, target share was for the RB1 and RB2 for the running backs. And so, you can look at that. You can scroll down and look at the wide receiver market shares or target shares for the wide receiver 1, 2, and 3. So let's say that somebody, let's say Devontae Adams get hurt, and so they kind of want to know, okay, well, what kind of market share would Valdez-Scantling get if he moved into that role? You can see all that information. So there's amazing stuff. And again, for the opponent, you can also see now under that the game logs of, how many interceptions they've had, how many receptions over 20 yards in certain games against them, and who did them. So there's all kinds of information. And then there's an instruction tab that not only has the full video, 9-minute video, but it also has a little GIF that kind of shows you how it works below. So it should be easy to use. All the instructions are there. Watch the videos, whatever the case may be. You can check this all out before you get to that point. So we got about 7 minutes left. So, like I said, let's kind of talk about what you've seen in the game so far tonight for the Packers. Only 17 yards on the first 2 drives. Like I said, I kind of expected this to be, the Bears to come out pretty fired up. They've got a very good defense. I think it's very obvious that they're dominating the offensive line, or the line. The defense is dominating the offensive line for the Packers. Like I said, Rodgers is not getting a lot of time to throw, and when he does, he makes bad throws like that. So it's another 3 and out for them. He looks frustrated, so I'm not sure. I mean, we'll see what happens. If you remember last year, they went into the halftime. He was hurt. It looked like they couldn't do anything with the ball, and then he came out and threw 3 touchdowns in the second half. So, yeah, you never know with Aaron Rodgers and company what's going to happen if in the game. So, so like I said, so let's kind of talk about our schedule now. As the season is going to be upon us. As we mentioned, Saturday you're going to get your Consistently Cashin both articles and your podcast. We're going to have the Prop Bet Consistency podcast, or Prop It Like It's Hot. and the article showing us some of our favorite picks for the week, prop bet wise. So those will usually be Saturdays. Various throughout the day. Could be early, could be later in the day, but they'll definitely come out on Saturday. So you have all that information for Sunday, and then in the week, obviously the weekly articles that I always do should be out on Tuesday night, if not Wednesday at the latest. And then we will probably always be doing, if I'm not mistaken, our podcast usually on Thursday night, kind of like we're doing it now, around 8-9 o'clock. During probably the Thursday night game, maybe a little bit earlier, we'll see. But that should be our weekly schedule. The articles will be there. Podcast will all be there so that we can get you consistently through the season and helping you win your leagues. Hopefully everybody had some great drafts. I don't know about you, Ron. I did a couple of drafts over the last few days. It just was entertaining as all get out, drafting Melvin Gordon in the 6th round after I had like Dalvin Cook and Chris Carson on my team. And I'm like, why not? Because I'll get another decent receiver later. And I did. So, did a few of those, actually did a couple leagues where I had Zeke and Gordon before either one signed. And somebody said, well, that's a pretty ballsy pick to get both of them. Like, well, if they both come in, think about it. I got, what would have been normally, 2 out of the first 7 picks of most drafts if they were both there healthy and signed for the team. So a lot of fun. Did you do any drafts this past weekend where you had that ability to get somebody like that?
I did one. It's funny because I think I'm in, after I tallied it all up, I think I'm in 18 leagues, and I'm only in 3 that have money on the line. And of those 3, 2 of them happen to be 8-team leagues, which is odd. One of them was a 12-teamer, and we had some people drop out the last couple of years. And then my one league that is my biggest money league, it's kind of a Scott Fishbowl scenario. You play in an 8-team division, but you also play against 95 other people that are in the league. So I did that one last week. And we had the same scenario in my draft there. A guy took, of course, it's a little less ballsy in an 8-team league. It's a little bit easier to compensate for it if you take those guys. But I had a guy sitting across from me that took both. He took both Zeke and Melvin Gordon. So far, the Zeke pick worked out. Maybe the Melvin Gordon one will. I don't know. My ESPN one that's 8 teams, I did take a shot with Melvin Gordon there. But it's kind of a wonky scenario with that one because you have a flex spot, but you only have, and you can start a receiver, a running back, or a tight end there. But you only have to start one running back. And I was able to get Devontae Freeman and Chris Carson. And so I thought, hey, we'll roll with Melvin Gordon later on.
Yeah,
if he sits on the bench, sure, great. Right. Why not? So that scenario, definitely. Other than that, I don't think I have him really. I don't think I have Melvin Gordon anywhere else other than that. But I don't have any Zeke shares. I don't have any Antonio Brown shares. But most of the drafts that I've done in the last week or so, I felt pretty good about. The one that really bit me in the ass was for Scott Fishbowl drafting Andrew Luck when I did early on in the summer, and you had all these crazy people spending every single penny of their fab budget on Jacoby Brissett, and I missed out on him because I didn't think to do that. I didn't think that would be something that people would do. So now I'm rolling with Tom Brady and Josh Rosen as my quarterback, so that stings a little bit. But,
ouch, yeah.
We'll see. We'll compensate. We'll try to put some guys in there. We got Saquon Barkley. We got Adam Thielen and Kelsey, so maybe those guys can pick up the slack a little bit. But that one's probably the one that burned me the most places is I had Luck in a couple of dynasties, and I had him in the Scott Fishbowl. And I think Colby and I drafted him on one of our FanX teams as well, and now we're rolling with Nick Foles there. So that's probably the one that hurt me the most in the most places.
Yeah, I also no. Did I do that?
And aside from the fact of being a Colts fan, but
yeah, right. There was a couple leagues that I had Luck, but I drafted somebody like a Roethlisberger or somebody worth having as a second. But like you said, there isn't much left to pick as my backup. So Big Ben gets hurt or something like that, I could be in big trouble. But the fun one that I had, and I think we've talked. So this is my original league from 1985. It's an auction league. We keep you can keep as many players as you want as long as you can keep under your salary cap, but you have to give everybody a 50% raise every year. So obviously you can't keep the big boys. But most big running backs, high-end running backs, will go usually somewhere between $40 and $80. Like Zeke went for $65 or $70, and Barkley went for $83. So it's a $220 cap with 16 players, dollar minimum. But anyway, so I had some money left, but not a ton. because I had a lot of young players I traded for last year. But real quick, Gordon starts basically bailing out at like $20, and I got him for $22. Now it's a keeper league. I can keep this guy next year, and all I got to do is pay him $33, and he's going to play somewhere. So that was I thought the pick of the draft. So a lot of fun there. So all right, well we got about 30 seconds. Ron, hit everybody out with where you're at and what we're going to be doing, and we'll take ourselves out of here.
Well, we told you all about the Consistently Cashin, where you're going to find me at Big Guy Fantasy Sports and my man Colby Conway every week. So we talked about that. Winding down the baseball season, baseball playoffs are getting ready to start. So we start rolling with the Nasty Cast. We got a couple episodes of that left. We're going Fantrax Dynasty Baseball. We're actually going to have our guy Bubba on the podcast this week. We're going to do a little 2020 Let's Do It Really draft.
Hear that? That's the sweet sound of Minute Maid slushies at McDonald's, turning up your summer with every sip, slurp, and ah.
Get a small sweet peach, blue raspberry, or fruit punch slushie for just $2. Or get any size soft drink for $1. Price and participation may vary. Limited time only. Cannot be combined with combo meal.
Hear that? That's the sweet sound of Minute Maid slushies at McDonald's, turning up your summer with every sip, slurp, and ah.
Get a small sweet peach, blue raspberry, or fruit punch slushie for just $2. Or get any size soft drink for $1. Price and participation may vary. Limited time only. Cannot be combined with combo meal.